Welcome to the Jung and the Restless. I'm Victor.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Olivia. And this is a podcast where... Oh, God damn it, the steering wheel is in the backseat again.
Now I lay me down to sleep. I dreamt I had a soul to keep. And if I die before I wake, will that dream just go on for its own sake?
So I would get to go and set up for and watch J-Lo and
Wasn't this the...
You
I
know,
feel
like-
like you told me a story about this job. Or
probably.
I don't remember. I remember someone called you a pretty boy.
Oh yeah, that guy from prison. Because a lot of manual labor jobs, there's a lot of ex-cons, And I was standing in a group of them. I didn't know that they were all as scary as they were, but they were. I was just people smoking cigarettes, and so I joined them. And someone goes, "Hey, pretty boy," and I didn't I pretended not to notice until he said it again, and I was like, "Oh, me?" I was super flattered, and he's like, "Yeah, who else would I be talking to?" And I pointed at another guy, and I was like, "I don't know, he's pretty hot." Didn't learn till later that I was flirting with death.
Had any dreams lately? Anyone?
Victor?
I get flashes of dreams, but I'm having a hard time conjuring. Oh yeah. Okay, I do remember.
Fuck
There
yeah.
you go.
This is I told you about this.
I don't remember.
It's not like a whole dream. So I'll get weird flashes of dreams, but this one I remembered because it woke me up. But it was there was some video call. It was me and my mom talking to my grandmother. I was in the room, my mom and my grandmother were talking. I remember it was whatever they were talking about, it was kind of irritating me. And then I went over and I made some kind of comment. I think my grandmother asked hey, is this okay? Or can you hear me okay? And my mom gave a polite oh yeah. And then I, who was irritated with it, gave a more honest answer and was oh yeah, no, it's kind of messed up, or something like that. I said the thing that I wasn't supposed to say. And then she was oh, and went to try and fix something. And then it turns very dark. She tripped and hurt herself. And then there was a fire and she was horribly burned by this fire. And I'm watching this screen of her coming up all burned up and injured and that woke me up, this horrifying image of my grandmother.
That's not a flash of a dream. That's a whole ass dream.
It's a pretty intense flash if it was flash length.
it was very short.
It all happened at once.
That all happened very quickly, and I think there's a lot of
Gotcha.
dream before that.
You saw it all on the video call?
Yeah, but it was one of those things where it's your brain kind of
Mhm.
cuts to something where it's I wasn't experiencing it as looking as at a screen. It was more I don't know. It was my mind was the screen.
That was how remember the
Right.
dream we talked about recently where Zach was in my dream and it was there was a video, but also
the security
everything was the
cameras.
video. Yeah. No, sometimes videos are weird. I was also going to say we could probably do this dream if we want to.
Sure.
But and I do remember this dream, and the interesting thing that happened was that morning we both woke up from a dream that ended in a fiery explosion.
Oh.
Do you remember yours?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, maybe we could do these in tandem or back to back.
We could.
What was yours?
Well, okay. I guess I'll tell mine, but I feel like our dreams have nothing to do with each other. But I mean, maybe, who knows? I guess so. Yeah, I was on a boat with my dad and the woman that he had been dating for a while recently, and she came up to me and nibbled my ear, and I was what the fuck? Why did you do that? Stop. And then I kind of hit her. Not very hard, but I hit her arm to show my
Displeasure.
yeah, I was not happy about that. And then I was sitting on the boat and her son was there. I don't remember what he was talking about, or yeah, I don't remember this very well. But how it ended was I was looking over at Mount Rainier and it just fucking like went up, full on volcanic eruption. And like there was a huge boom, and I remember worrying about the dogs because the dogs were at home, and I'm like, they're gonna be freaked out, and that's what I do is I worry about the dogs. But yeah, like we both woke up from a dream that was like fire and chaos.
Would have been weird if it was the same time.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Woke up at exactly the same time. Maybe Victor's grandma was on Mount Rainier.
Maybe. Well, we can take a crack at interpreting my short dream and then like pivot to yours and see if we feel like
Yeah, if we can relate them somehow.
yeah.
Because it is curious as people who, are getting married soon and like sleep next to each other. Like I wonder, because a large part of your dreams are like the day's events, right? Like if you spend your days together and like kind of resolve your days together, I wonder how much overlap is meaningful.
Right. All right. Well, let's do it. Let's take a crack at it.
Okay. So it sounded like you said it was mostly like it was like a volcano going off. Was there like a fire?
It was a volcano.
It was a volcano.
It was a volcanic eruption.
Fiery.
Yeah, the way you described it, I pictured like a paper mache thing with like lighter fluid on it.
But it wasn't like it wasn't like a normal volcanic eruption. It was almost like the mountain exploded. It was intense. It was not just lava. It was like the whole thing. Like, yeah, it went boom.
Well, so the fire entry in the Dream Bible says to dream of something being on fire represents issues that you are consumed by, a strong passion or prolonged obsession, often a symbol for anger, intense bitterness, or waking life situations that go way too far, a temper that is out of control. Something being on fire could also reflect the total loss of something, destruction. Alternatively, a fire may represent a problem in waking life that has gotten out of control. Alternatively, dreaming about a fire may reflect your fear of experiencing a loss that you can't control, destructive jealousy, or over-emotional reactions.
Do you remember how you were feeling in the dream?
I mean, I remember being annoyed, like not hugely annoyed, but just like mildly annoyed, the way that you sometimes are with family.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember feeling like I was being like a little bit disruptive. And then obviously like after that, when it transitioned into like me watching a series of horrible things happen to my grandmother, I was just like horrified and aghast, and it woke me up.
Yeah.
And I will say like, so I dreamt of, I think it was my mom and my grandmother in this dream. I don't think this was actually my mom. It was more like a person that represented my mom or a close relative. And my mom's not somebody that I have much of a relationship with, but I am very close to my grandmother. That's more of where the family connection is. So yeah, this person, this mom was kind of more of like a stand-in family relationship.
Yeah, the dream logic mom.
Right.
Well, and then your mom and your grandma also have their own complicated relationship too.
Right. But I don't know that it was about my mom, because that's like a kind of a messy subject. I think it was more just like, it was probably more a dream about my grandmother or like a like general family stuff.
Let's look up mom in the Dream Bible though, because I think that absolutely is a thing where it's like a generic mom figure,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, not like your mom, but capital M mom.
It's a long entry.
Yeah, I figured it would be.
So, to dream of your mother represents your intuition or your internal guidance. She reflects your ability to make decisions that will affect you in the future or how well you make choices based on gut instinct. She also reflects how lucky you feel about coincidences or good foresight, feelings about how to safely get something. Let's see. I think, there's a lot of different scenarios listed here, but I actually think maybe what resonates. So I would say, my grandmother is like almost more of a mother figure in my life than my actual mom is. And so there's a section here to dream of murdering your mother, which her being horribly injured or whatever was not an intention of mine, but I did feel responsible for it. Like I had said the thing that like set her into motion, which caused like an accident that then resulted in her being hurt, right? So I felt like I had caused the problem. So it says to dream of murdering your mother represents feelings about hurting your future or terminating opportunities, killing off your good luck, or making a drastic reversal of past decisions. Killing your mother may also reflect feelings about choices or plans you regret and now you feel you have to put an end to.
Are you getting cold feet?
Now you had what sure sounded like yeah, okay. We'll get into that later.
Wait, was that something that came up in another session? Or I remember somebody making a joke about cold feet. Oh, that was our production meeting. Never mind this.
I think we're gonna get into this dream.
That dream was not a cold feet dream.
Well,
right?
Hey, don't spoil it.
Well, okay, all right. I mean, I do totally have
really.
Cold feet, but that dream
it could
was
be,
not
guys.
about that.
Yeah.
Keep listening to find out. Will the marriage stay on?
I mean, okay, so if I was going to take a crack at interpreting it myself based on my own feelings, I think it's like, sometimes your dreams are trying to process, life experiences or things you might run into or whatever. I experienced a normal feeling for me, which was being like a little bit irritable. And then like I was aware that the like socially appropriate thing to do would be to say thing A. And instead I was like, fuck it, and said thing B, which is how I actually felt. And that kicked a whole series of disasters into motion. So it's like maybe some anxiety I have about that kind of situation where I feel like I should say one thing, but it's not what I mean, and I'd rather say the thing that I actually think, or something like that. If I had to guess, I'd say it's probably that's what it is my brain was running a little simulation of like, what if you do this social faux pas? And it said, you're going to kill somebody if you do that. So
yeah, or like visualizing the fear of that, like that having been like, what if I do say this thing that I'm not supposed to say, and then it ends up being the last thing I say to this person.
Mm-hmm.
That could be like one potential reason for that fear. That your brain is just like picturing.
Yeah, I think about that a lot.
And then it also did kind of feel like, do you ever have that experience in a dream where something shifts a little bit, or like you get a little shocked or whatever by something that happens in your dream, and then your brain is like, oh, we're doing this? This is a nightmare now? Okay. And then it just cranks everything up to 11 because you had like a little bit of a freaked out response that wasn't really expected or whatever. Like Olivia has a couple of dreams like that. I imagine, Zach, you've had those too.
Yeah, I had a night like that. I can't remember anything specifically, but last night I had like one creepy dream, and then I was so tired, so it was easy. I kept falling right back asleep, but then having immediately saying something creepy and waking back up again, and I was like, get out of this zone.
Yeah,
because I know it's just
your
now
brain's
it's
like
I'm
out
in
to
it.
get you.
Yeah, it's because I was so tired and I didn't have time to like lay there and get over the first startle. So I kept dipping back into the same feeling.
I hate that.
It was oddly just annoying last night because I was like, nah, I want to stay asleep. Yeah, so do you think it's more about that qualm than it is about like your grandmother?
Yeah, I mean, at least to my gut is that it had more to do with how I navigate like a social situation more so than it has to do with any person that was in the dream or like an anxiety I have over that.
Yeah, so your grandmother could just be a like representative of a really important person that you wouldn't want to, like, the worst person to cross that line with, or at least the one that would make you feel the guiltiest.
Yeah, she'd be representative of someone that I would feel guilty to harm, and then my mishandling of a situation resulted in her being harmed, right? And then I don't know, like, I think this is pretty normal, but like, because we're so close, she has like a special way of getting under my skin sometimes in some situations. So it's like maybe having to do with like me trying to work through irritability, how I'm handling when I start to feel, stressed out, that kind of thing.
Okay, so I think it'd be kind of fun for us to talk about a dream that I had last week. Victor and I kind of already dug into it, but I feel like the meaning of it is really clear, and Dream Bible has a lot of clues. But so I was thinking,
Oh, this game, yeah.
We tell Zach the dream, he takes a crack at interpreting it, and then you share your interpretation based on what our conversation last week.
yeah. Okay.
Make of this what you will. This Dream Bible entry, or not Dream Bible, this dream.
Oh,
this dream
okay,
from
okay.
Olivia's Dream Bible. This dream journal entry.
Okay.
Dream journal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it starts off, I'm running through this field, and it's like dusk, like coming on nighttime. And I'm with Victor's friend Heather. And there's these purple moon mushrooms. That's what they were called. And they're these big, like, dinner plate sized purple mushrooms that are like, they kind of look like the moon. And I said to her, like, you can eat those. And she was like, no, thank you. And then it like kind of cuts to, I'm staying in Heather's apartment, Heather and her husband, Aaron's apartment. And I guess Victor and I were visiting them, and Victor is asleep in their bed. And I wake him up, and he's like really groggy and tired. And I notice that he has like a bad haircut, like somebody like totally butchered his hair, like, and left like really long stringy pieces. And also in this moment, his face was not his face. It was the face of like the first person I dated, who was like just like toxic piece of shit kind of person. When I was like very young, like 15. Mm-hmm. And then I'm doing laundry, and I see a cockroach, and it's like moving really fast. And then suddenly there's like another cockroach, and the two cockroaches start to mate. And like, I'm looking over at Victor to see if he sees the cockroaches. And then I look back, and there's two more cockroaches mating. And I look back at Victor, and I look back at the cockroaches, and there's a third pair of cockroaches mating. And then I looked back at Victor, and there was a cockroach like on his pants. And I was trying to like, I remember I did the thing where like, somebody is scared of spiders, and you see a spider on them. And so you don't want to freak them out. And so you try to get it off without them, because you don't want to say, don't freak out. And then they freak out because they think there's a spider on them. So I like tried to really like subtly get it off of him before he noticed it was there, because I didn't want to scare him, I guess. And I think that's the whole dream.
All right. Roach orgy.
Yeah. And so the things that I looked up were
Oh, wait, are you going to give me these?
Yeah, mushroom.
Or am I trying to okay, well, I already looked out. I just typed that one in.
Okay. And then I looked up cockroach, and hang on one second. Let me.
I think ex-boyfriend was one, or like ex-partner, and bad haircut.
No, yeah. Did we look up that haircut?
It seemed pertinent.
I thought there was something about. I thought there was a bad haircut entry.
No, there is a bad haircut entry, but we didn't use it.
Okay. Well, I'll read this out loud since Victor usually does. To dream of a mushroom represents concern that you are making a bad choice. Preoccupation with how dangerous something you want to do might be. A lack of confidence with something you feel you are risking. Asking yourself, is this good for me or not? Struggling with values or morality. The prospect of making a dangerous choice you don't feel good risking. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it for mushrooms. No purple mushrooms or anything like that. And is a moon mushroom a real thing, or did your brain make that up?
I think my brain made that up, but there probably is a kind of mushroom that's a moon mushroom. But that is interesting, because there's like moon and purple. I remember purple also has like a specific meaning.
Yeah, I remember we were surprised by it, because it was like completely contrary to the generally accepted symbolism of purple. I know we've also looked up roaches before, because you have had many cockroach dreams.
Yes, I have had cockroach dreams for some, which is so funny because we live in a place where there are no cockroaches, or like if there are, which I think there probably are, we really don't see them here.
I didn't see them when I was in Seattle.
I've never
I see them
seen
every
one.
day here.
I've never seen a cockroach here.
It's really earwig country out here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna add
Spideys.
moon to this.
But you didn't use it before.
No, I didn't look it up before, but should I read it? Or do you want to read it?
Sure.
Okay.
You can read it.
To dream of the moon represents an area of your life that is becoming overpowered or strengthened. Situations becoming more hectic, dramatic,
I'm so sorry.
or noticeable.
The sun is shining at my eyes from where I'm sitting, and it was totally a sun sneeze.
I noticed that. It's like directly aggressively in your eyes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start over.
Yeah.
To dream.
Don't edit that out, though.
No, that's staying in. To dream of the moon represents an area of your life that is becoming overpowered or strengthened. Situations becoming more hectic, dramatic, or noticeable. Something in your life becoming more fertile or obvious. An area of your life is proving itself.
Okay.
Positively, the moon may represent unusual luck or very positive, unusual outcomes. Larger forces seem at work in your life right now, heightened, exciting romantic activity or overpowering romantic feelings.
Okay.
The moon mushrooms were very like positive. Like there was a positive feeling.
That was your
there.
feeling on them.
Yeah.
But your friend or Victor's friend?
Heather. Yeah.
Heather.
Yeah. She didn't want to partake in the mushrooms. She was not enthused by the mushrooms.
Right. Is understanding this dream can be difficult if I don't know her?
There is a piece of information that adds to this that I think
Okay.
we will give to you if you're totally stuck, but I think that you could probably get here without it.
Okay. Because the moon, that being a compound word, moon mushrooms,
Mm-hmm.
seems paradoxical because the mushrooms are all like risk and
Yeah.
dangerous choices, that adds up to me because well, I immediately think of like a psychedelic mushroom, which could go either way if I were to eat one. You know what I mean? Like that would be
Yeah.
a risk.
Yeah. No, it's funny adding the moon to the mushrooms. Like I can see why that's confusing, but where I find the meaning in this dream, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Okay. I think I need to zoom out. See, and then you go to their house, and Victor becomes a shitty ex with shitty hair.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna look up X.
Look up the cockroaches. Because I think we actually got to this with just mushroom and cockroach.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was just on cockroach, which we had looked at not long ago. It was like things that are poor quality and dirty and cockroaches. Situation being low quality, dirty, or poor. A tarnished reputation, a continuous problem, feeling annoyed by something subpar, imperfections that embarrass you. Yes, all bad. All how people really do feel about cockroaches. That seems to be a pretty universally despised creature.
I think there's an example in there that was interesting.
There's a bunch of examples.
Look at the first example.
A young man dreamed of being surrounded by cockroaches. In real life, he met an old friend who expressed love to him. He was extremely uncomfortable with this expression of love. The cockroaches reflected how undesirable it was to have his friend be so honest with him about his feelings.
That's not it. Let's see. There was, okay, let me see if I can find it.
Incesticide, bonnet. I was going for a walk the other night, just around the block here, and I hit one like couple yard long stretch of sidewalk where they were just like huge ones. Like longer than my longest toe, and I was wearing flip-flops, and they were just like scuttling all over the sidewalk, and I
Dear God.
did not react super manly. I did that like high step that you do in flip-flops.
Mm-hmm.
It made a noise like "Wah!"
Okay. I can't remember. Okay, Victor, help me out. I can't remember what it was, but it was one of the entries
about the cockroach.
I thought it was, but it was one of the entries that we looked up for the stream had an example that was about a bad haircut.
Wait, I just love this one. A woman dreamed of Jesus placing a cockroach on her head while putting his hand over her mouth. In waking life, she was annoyed by a website forum, not allowing her to talk about her religious beliefs. What an epic dream. Jesus just comes down to heavens to be like, shh.
Very
shut up.
symbolic. I'm trying to remember. What was it? Do you remember that, Victor?
I'm looking.
I thought it was I could have sworn it was cockroaches. Did they edit the cockroach entry? Oh, wait, no. Wait. It's in the very first paragraph of the cockroaches entry. To dream of cockroaches represents feelings of undesirability. Something you really don't want in your life. Example, the feeling you'd get from a bad haircut.
Oh, weird.
Right?
Did I skip that or did I read it and just not put it together?
I ignore parentheses.
If I said that out loud, people have been listening for minutes now being like, it's right there, dude.
Yeah, it's true. But anyway, I just thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah, but that's not like what tied it all together for you?
Okay, so let's see.
Is the dream just about you being worried that Victor's going to get a bad haircut for the wedding?
It's so okay. Do you want a hint?
Just a little context here. Olivia did call off the wedding a couple of days ago. So we're no longer getting married. We're still living together, but we're not together.
Victor's been making a lot of signs.
Fuck. Okay, so this is a thing that I think it's come up in other dreams that we've talked about with me. This dream is about something that has been like on my mind that I like go back and forth about a lot. We've talked about it a couple of times actually. And then I think there's a couple of hints in here. I could give you hints or I could just tell you what I think it's about. What do you think?
Well, I want to hear Zach take a crack at interpreting this.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. What do you think? Where do you think we're at?
Yeah, because he already gave me a hint technically. If it's about something that has come up before.
Okay. Yeah.
And I feel like the part that I haven't gotten to like thinking out loud about is the cockroaches being in pairs mating. Is that important?
Yeah, I think so.
Because the only one that wasn't in a pair was on him, and you were trying to get rid of it. and if cockroaches represent, something undesirable, kind of like that haircut.
Yeah, this dream doesn't look very good for me.
Well, but you're not you. You're this other guy.
No,
kinda.
yeah.
But it's like dream logically, you're there.
It's funny because I brought this when I like brought it up. I was like, okay, hey baby, I had a dream last night that I think might mean that we like finally have like an issue that we need to talk about. Let's see what this is about. And when we like dug into it, it was like, oh no, that's not actually about an issue.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's about Victor.
No.
Like obviously, like when I heard this dream, I was like, are you getting cold feet? Do we need to talk? Is there something going on? Because it paints me in a very negative light, and it sounds like there's something going on in our relationship, right? But Olivia does not feel that is the meaning of this dream.
Do you?
No.
Okay, cool.
But you know yourself, and you know, like,
yeah.
I think that your explanation makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like paints a different person's face over yours, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if this is me taking a crack at it or not, but it feels like it's about like something coming up that you want to be rid of, or something coming back that has to do, or maybe is like exemplified by this past relationship. So like it was a long time ago, so not like literally, but like
I
think
no, you're onto something
that
with
connects.
That. Yes, yeah, that is
like something that guy did, or like some residual behavior that you don't like. You're saying again, maybe not necessarily in Victor, but
yeah, I think that's not quite, but it's like, yes, it is like, I think that face there is like, is more about like a fear than it is about like any real thing.
Does that other couple factor in more? Is that the missing piece for me? Because that was the other thing I was thinking, like maybe it could be more, because it starts with her and ends up at their house. Because not knowing her at all, I could take a wild guess and say it's about you projecting. You were
going on about the cockroaches mating, and then I think you got maybe focused on the one that was on him, but the cockroaches mating, I feel like, was like the thing that clued me in.
And it doesn't pertain to Heather and what's his name?
Not really. It's like kind of a side. There's a side note about Aaron and Heather that like sort of adds like, yeah, I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, because they do feel like more like the setting of the stream than the subject.
Yeah.
Should we give you our interpretation.
Oh, wait, does it have to do with reproducing?
Bro.
I was just going through things you said that have come up in the past. I remembered it was the horse dream, right?
Mm-hmm. And the the eagle
pony or
one
whatever.
too.
Oh, yeah. The pony one was the one with the tree.
Yes, the pony and the pretty tree.
People talking about dreams out of context. The pony was the one with the tree, right? The eagle one had a tree too, right?
It did, yeah. It did have a tree. Yeah, that's interesting.
Were these moon mushrooms growing at the bottom of trees?
Perhaps. No, actually they weren't. They were in a field. There were no trees involved.
A field of trees.
That is a forest, my friend.
Okay.
You got
Putting it
it.
together, maybe. Well, now I'm trying to get specific. Do you think about what you think maybe it is? Because I don't know if this is my interpretation or not. I'm like working on trying to figure out what you came to. So with seeing a multitude of cockroaches, well, I mean, you said like 3 groups or whatever, but like multiple cockroaches mating, I feel like maybe you're seeing a lot of reproduction happening like in the world when maybe it's like not thought out and not responsible. And then this one lone one being on, a representation of like old toxic things that aren't in your life anymore. It feels like it's, having kids is like rolling the dice. As good as your genes are, you don't know how, and as well as you raise them, you don't know like how they're going to turn out. Like what if it dredges up?
Well, that's another like fear to add to my list of reasons why. And what if they just suck, But yeah, no, it's definitely like.
Or do you feel like it has to do with like maybe making sure that you've gotten everything negative out of your life that you need to before you can do that?
Not quite, but I think with where you are at right, like you're very close to it, to where I have concluded this dream, and I think if you go back to the moon mushrooms now with this in mind, you might put it together.
Yeah, I feel like I have a lot of loose threads that I'm tying the wrong loose ends to each other.
I think you've got the main parts, and then you're filling in details that are maybe different from what I thought.
Well, the first line represents a concern that you're making a bad choice.
Right.
Preoccupation with how dangerous something you want to do might be. Asking yourself, is this good for me or not? Struggling with values or morality. That's kind of what I was trying to say about like the other cockroaches mating. Like you're asking yourself, well, what it says right here, is this good for me or not? Or is this, in alignment with what I think we should be doing? The prospect of making a dangerous choice you don't feel good risking. Yeah, I mean, yeah, in that context, this whole paragraph makes a lot more sense.
Right.
Is that where your head was at?
Yeah, let me look at the moon one again, because I feel like that added stuff for me.
Right, moon. An area of your life that is becoming overpowered or strengthened. Wait, aren't those antonyms? Situations becoming more hectic, dramatic, or noticeable.
I think we could give him the context of Aaron and Heather now.
Yeah.
So Aaron and Heather are some friends of mine. They're married. They've been together a long time. They're both very career driven. And so for now, at least, they're not having kids anytime soon. Maybe down the road, but they have solidly decided kids are a down the road, if ever, kind of thing for them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. That's the whole context?
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Them being like an overall positive sort of vessel for this dream. If you're, comparing and contrasting, I guess. Positively, the moon may represent unusual luck or very positive, unusual outcomes. Larger forces seem to be at work in your life right now. Do you feel like that is like career stuff?
I think the thing that like
/ this kind of ambition that,
I think the thing that the moon added was there was something about fertility in there.
Yeah, it was in the top paragraph.
Right. And like, yes, things becoming more present or like strengthened. Like, for me, it's kind of like, I've been thinking about this a lot where it's like, yes, I want to have kids, but I also have a lot of reservations about it. I have very conflicting feelings about it for myself personally. Like I just feel like it's really hard and it probably sucks sometimes, you know? And I guess seeing other people like choosing not to do that feels like a really valid choice. But I think that what the cockroaches were about for me was like, and also seeing that face on Victor was like the idea that having kids would like ruin a good thing or like make our relationship harder or like fuck up our sex life or like make us like lash out at each other or exhibit like toxic behaviors towards each other because of stress that we're under or whatever.
So you think that's the fear of that?
That's the fear, is that like if we're to choose to have kids, because like you hear that all the time, and like part of me is like, well, maybe it's just like that's going to be more of a problem in relationships that are already not like working out that as well as they could. But
yeah, they definitely don't fix things.
No,
from what I've observed.
Right. So yeah, no, I mean, I think we've got there, is that this dream for me feels like really clearly about like, do I want to have kids? Do I want to take this risk that is like, not the other thing I think about a lot is like the health risks of like pregnancy. Like it's not just a simple thing, you know, it's kind of a big deal. It sounds pretty awful. But also there is something in me that's like, do that. You want to do that.
Oh yeah. Biology.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. Like at the beginning there is like the mushrooms. I'm like, do you want to take the mushroom? You can eat these. And she's like, no, I'm good. And she's the person in real life who like maybe my brain reached for as like someone who's got other things that they want to put all their energy into right now, and that you know, that's not on the table for them. And I think the rest of the dream was like the fear of that choice having negative, undesirable consequences for our relationship, which I think is fantastic and really good. And I don't want to like do anything that would make it less good.
All right. I mean, that all makes sense.
Yeah, I thought so.
So the wedding's back on, folks.
Good, because I already bought my plane tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I had kids like to like offer literally anything. But I'm like, I don't know what happens to people, and I only have so many friends to like even use as examples. You know, they're all stubborn millennials who refuse to procreate. But the one really close friend that I can think of has 2 kids, still has a really great relationship with his wife.
I think like logically speaking, that is not an actual fear of mine, because I do feel like Victor and I are a great team, and that like I think that we're well equipped to deal with the challenges that come out of that. But like yeah, I guess it's just like it is a risk. It's like your whole life is going to be very different after that. So
for many years.
Yeah, forever.
But I'm sure my buddy that I was just talking about had this exact conversation with his wife. I think the people that are most well equipped for it are the most trepidatious about it.
Let me tell you a story about the Oklahoma Octopus.
The what?
The Oklahoma Octopus. So Olivia and I were camping the other weekend, and we're not really fishermen, but we were giving it a go.
Anglers.
We're not anglers. Yeah, we're not sportsmen generally. But a buddy of ours was kind of like showing us the ropes, and like we were doing a little fishing, and Olivia tells one of our friends that we're there with that we're thinking of having kids. And our friend is like, hey, you know, congratulations. That's great. Good for you. Not for me, but good for you. And, you know, not 2 minutes later, this family comes down and it's, you know, this kid and a couple. And the kid promptly runs off from his parents, and his parents are overjoyed to have this
hones
this
in on
kid,
me.
dip out, and this kid runs right up to Olivia and talks like nonstop, almost without a breath, at Olivia for a solid 30 minutes about the Oklahoma octopus that lives in the lake that's like a mile wide, and I think sends emails.
Yeah, at 4 a.m. he might send you an email, something about like
I believe they're called
explos-
C-mails.
I made that joke too.
Did you?
I did.
He's also saying he might have to nuke the Oklahoma octopus.
Yeah, and that he
which
has magical powers, and yeah.
we're going to need to get Congress involved, first of all, before
Yeah.
we do something like that. But
Some checks and balances.
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, at some point, these parents had to leave, and they came over to collect their child, and they said, "Sorry, he's a talker," and they took him and they knew what they were doing.
Oh yeah, they just let him go crazy for half an hour and
You know,
enjoyed
he's-
being left alone.
Shoveling gummy worms down his mouth, like just like at least take the ADHD inducing ingredients away.
It was like God sent this child to punish Olivia for her hubris of thinking that she should reproduce.
And yeah, so he left, and I said, I changed my mind.
Man, that lady should have like slipped you a 20 or something, or whatever they pay babysitters.
Yeah, for real.
Honestly.
I had another child dream the other night.
Oh yeah?
It was like Victor's dream. It was a flash. But usually it's an infant girl that I have in my dreams. This time it was like a toddler, a boy, and he was just napping on me while I watched TV. That was the whole dream.
That sounds
That's
nice.
kind of sweet.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you a picture of the Oklahoma octopus.
Oh yeah, Olivia drew it over the last couple of days. It's very good.
I should start
Yeah,
keeping a
you should-
dream journal, an illustrative dream journal. That
Yeah,
would be kind of fun.
Wait, you drew this?
she did. Put it on put it on our Instagram.
Well, he made an impression on me.
Got a cowboy hat and everything. Sending a C-mail.
Yeah.
I did have an interesting like thought about dreams the other day, and I wish I was before we got online. I was trying to like remember the dream that I had the other night. All I remember is that it was like super stressful and chaotic and upsetting, and that in the dream I was living with my parents again, like in the jerking off dream. And they were together and sleeping in the same room. So I also remember that it was at night, so they were asleep. And then I woke up from this dream and I had to pee. It was like 4 a.m. and I went to the bathroom, with my in like a zombie state. And I was thinking about like, oh, that dream was probably another work dream. Like all the chaos and like uncertainty and stress. Like that was probably like every other dream I've been having lately about like career stuff. But then it just hit me like, well, my parents were together and they got divorced when I was like 22. So like right as I'm leaving college and entering the workforce. And I just had this weird like thought that maybe, or like out of nowhere, it felt like an epiphany because I was like half asleep. But I was like, what if dreams where my parents are together, because that's a marker in time, is about childhood stuff? And any dream where they're not together is adult stuff.
If they're in
You know what
your
I mean?
dream, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes less sense coming back to it fully awake. But I was just like, what if the jerking off dream was not about like work stress? What if it had to do with like, because Victor was even talking about that, it felt like a regression back into a childhood home, doing something like kind of like jerking off in your room like you did when you're a teenager.
Right.
I was like, I wonder if that was less career stuff and more like processing childhood stuff. But
I wonder if we can find some information on these things, because like Dream Bible has like a lot of symbols and that's been really helpful. But I've also had this same thought where it's like in other contexts, I will have dreams that take place at home, but my house is different. Like sometimes it'll be my house, sometimes it'll be the house I grew up in, sometimes it'll be the house that I moved to, or like in the last couple of dreams that we had or that we talked about, like I had a dream where Sign Guy was at the house that we moved to in when I was like 12. But then I had another dream, like the dream where Sign Guy was leaving with the truck and full of frogs. Like
Right.
that was the house that my mom is currently in. So like, I don't know. It's just interesting that like, what does that mean that your brain is like picking different
times and places?
Yeah, like making connections with like broader context, you know?
Yeah, maybe that's why it occurred to me, because this one the other night was in my childhood home.
Mhm.
The masturbation dream was in a like totally fictional, like the wall that was all glass. Like I can't remember ever being in a place like that.
No, that's interesting. It's like, I think, you know, something that we've hit upon doing this is, I don't know how much any of us believed in like shared and like the collective unconscious before we started doing this. But I do feel like I take it more seriously because of I feel like success with dream interpretation, I think, points to something there. And I don't know that it's anything. I don't really think it's a spooky thing, you know? I think that it has to do with like,
woo-woo thing.
Yeah, I don't really think it's a woo-woo thing. I think it has to do with like, you know, our psychology and our shared cultural experiences, or like, you know, kind of inherent base programming of being a human. You're scared of a wolf kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you know, maybe there's a spooky element to it, but I think you can sufficiently explain it with just human psychology. But this points to another layer on top of that, which is you have your shared language, but then you have your unique individual internal system of symbols and your internal language of meaning for your personal subconscious that may not be shared by others.
Yeah, and the dynamics between them. Well, and I was even wondering, like, if you thought it would be possible for that collective unconsciousness, whatever it is, to also share, because the symbols are like vocabulary, and then a piece of dynamic information, like this mile marker means is about, you know what I mean? Like it changes the point of view of the interpretation. That would be like grammar, the grammar of the dream. And, you know, if maybe that's too complicated to like share collectively, because symbolism is, like you're saying, like real primal and instinctual.
Well, I think that like also each individual's brain is like shaped and developed through the lens of their own personal experiences and their own life and their own, you know, the things that they see and the things they learn and the things that they believe and the beliefs that they carry. And that by itself is probably going to create its own set of rules and language for your subconscious to operate with. I think you're right that it's more like a second layer. Like there's the broader layer that we like take things from cultural contexts. And then there's the personal layer and the individual layer that is based on your own experiences.
Yeah. And to kind of go back to my short dream that we started with, right? It's like, you know, I don't have a close relationship with my mother. She suffers from mental illness, and that makes it difficult to have a relationship with her. And so, like, for me personally, I have two mother concepts in my brain. I have my personal experience of my mother and what that experience was like, and, you know, our relationship. And then I have the shared cultural concept of mother, you know, like that I've absorbed from being a person in around other people, right? And so, like, I think it is meaningful that in my dream, it was not my mom in the dream. It was the idea of a mom, you know, and that those are two different symbols burned into my subconscious. And if I had seen my actual mom, that would mean something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're both kind of there because you saw like a mom, and then you also saw your grandmother who
is herself.
And who was a mother figure to you.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. 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 So kind of both versions of that word were there.
Yeah. So it's a version. So I have been shaped by that experience of my unique relationship that I have in my family. And so like my internal like symbolic language is a little bit unique in that way. And we all have our own, you know, unique imprints, right? And even in the Dream Bible, it will say stuff like, I think we were talking about the ex-partner entry. It'll say like, this is very unique to you. You know, there is a general concept, but like your specific experience with your ex has a lot to do with what seeing that ex in your dream means.
And in the dream we just talked about, the ex, like there were several exes that I could have had their face projected onto you. But the ex that was in that dream was certainly by far the most like problematic person I've ever been entangled with, and like the kind of relationship that was very damaging, you know. And it's like I think that is what was important about that, was that I was worried that this choice could bring that negativity into our relationship. It might have meant something different if it had been a different face, you know?
Yeah. It was an early formed and like strong impression of an unhealthy relationship, a bad dynamic, a thing you need to get out of kind of experience that's totally unique to you. And so, Zach, like you're saying, like you have the unique experience of your parents divorcing at a certain age, a certain time of your life, right? And so seeing your parents together or seeing your parents separated has like a unique meaning to you from that experience that may not be shared by like, versus, you know, my parents got divorced when I was 6, right? Or 5, you know? So maybe them being together or separate is not the same kind of meaning, right? You know, well, for you have a clear line of like, I was, you know, an adolescent moving into adulthood up to the point of my parents separated. And then as I became a man, like a working adult person, my parents were no longer together. So it's like a clear line for you of like before and after.
Yeah. Because obviously the specific dynamic would be different for everybody, and I guess that plays a role in whether or not dynamics in general could be like a part of the shared experience. You know what I mean? Because of people who have divorced parents, it's going to be a different time and place for everybody. So I don't know that would, because of all the like nuances of that particular event, that it would necessarily draw a delineation in like what a dream is putting a parentheses around.
Right.
I don't know if that made sense how I constructed that sentence.
I think I followed. I would say, like, you know, you could have somebody whose parents are still together dreaming about their parents not being together, right? And then that would be for them nothing to do with a marker in time, right? And it would have some wholly different interpretation for a person who didn't have that experience in waking life. So it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it felt like I stumbled upon something at 4 a.m. when I was being, you know, that like stoned feeling of being still half asleep when you're walking around.
I do feel like
and you like rush back to bed so you don't lose it.
Yeah, you gotta say it out loud so you don't forget. I do feel like parents divorcing is like a formative enough experience. Like my parents divorced when I was in like 5th grade. I think 5th grade. And like I've always associated that time with puberty, just because that was like the other big thing, the big milestone thing that was happening at the time. But if you really think about it, though, there's always a milestone thing happening when you're a kid. So like just because I associate it with that doesn't necessarily. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I guess it's like the idea that it's like associated with a time is like maybe looser than that, because no matter where they're gonna do that, it in and of itself is like the thing that splits your life, you know?
Yeah. And I think I was trying to like drop an explanation for why we have weird non-sequential, like you were saying earlier about you dream of all different houses from different points, but you don't go back to that time. You know, and we do that all the time where we dream of like one thing juxtaposed to another thing that existed at two totally different times in our life. And I think I was trying to come up with an explanation for or a mechanism behind that. But I think it probably does have more to do with the fundamental meaning of the dream, and whatever symbols it has to use is what it uses.
You were saying you were feeling like this. You kind of woke up with this insight this feeling of realizing something about your own dream psychology, right? Which could very well be true, or could just be, sleepy. You're not, an idea occurs to you. It's not always true when you have an idea. But if we ran with that concept, right, it's like it makes sense that when we're doing this podcast and we do one of your dreams, a lot of the time the interpretation we land on is like it's very present. It's very much about work you or like your career path or whatever. And so, we have to stay open to the possibility that our interpretation is just a product of, what we're working with, right? Our information. So me and Olivia only know you in the context of being an adult person. You're like dealing with career stuff like that's a friend of mine of like, I'm working this job. Oh, I'm trying to move from this job to a different job. Oh, I want to, so that is our context for who you are a lot of the time. So it would make sense if we are just taking that understanding of you and applying that in maybe places where it doesn't fit. So like you were saying, like you felt like you had this insight of that masturbation dream. My parents were together. I was in this house with my parents. Maybe it wasn't about me as adult, me worrying about my career stuff. Maybe it has more to do with like something from childhood, something from adolescence, something that you're still working through. So like in that context, do you feel like anything jumps out at you about like in the context of, let's say the masturbation dream was about your childhood. Does that bring anything up for you? Does that connect any dots for you?
A little bit. I mean, it does add another layer to it that I don't think we talked about at the time, which is that career stuff for me is deeply tied to shame. Like I have a lot of shame around what I see as a lack of success there. And so it adds to that. And we talked about masturbation being a shameful activity or perceived as such. We tend to feel that way about it. But if the dream is also about regression and being a kid, that is pretty like tied to how my shame with career stuff has to do with feeling like inadequate and underdeveloped and juvenile, like an irresponsible kid who can't handle a career.
I feel like that's so common.
Yeah,
I feel like everyone we
absolutely.
talk to has some insecurity and deep dissatisfaction with their
job and
career.
Yeah.
And it's
Everybody.
like it's either you are doing something you don't love and you should be loving it, or doing something that you love but it's not good for society, or it's not doing either of those things and you're just like, treading water trying to find something. It's like there's every person we know seems to have, I don't know if this has always been true and people always feel that way, or if it's like a unique condition for like our generation and what it's like to work today, but it seems like there's like general dissatisfaction with work, with your career, with like and constantly a feeling of like, oh, I should be doing better, I should be doing more with myself, and in not just monetary terms, but like, I should be doing more for the world, I should be doing more for my community, and work isn't checking any of those boxes for most of the people that we know, and I feel like that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot. And
feeling like belittled in a specific way because of it. And also, it's kind of a new thing for me because for all my 20s, I was like, fuck it, whatever. I'll work in coffee shops till I died.
Right.
Like, as long as I get to like play in a band and like do cool shit outside of that, I didn't give a shit. But something about turning 30 was like, oh, fuck, I'm still a kid.
Right.
and then especially in my last relationship, it wasn't a good one. And this person would use that against me. In like the throes of a fight or whatever would make me feel small for my lack of progress. So I think that along with turning 30, like drove it a little deeper than it had ever been before. But I think it's always been there as just a part of capitalism, and probably especially for our generation, this is the only one I'm a part of. But it does feel like it's what's the word?
Harder.
Ubiquitous.
Or that.
I mean, I am glad that it's not like 100 years ago and I'm dying in a coal mine or in like a lumber mill or something. Like things are relatively cushy compared to that, right? But still, I think broadly people kind of feel disconnected from community and purpose in their work,
Mhm.
right? And so that eats at everybody.
For sure.
It's pretty messed up for her to like use that against you like that, though. I don't know.
That sucks.
Yeah, at least that's my side of the story. You know, I feel a little. I'm also simplifying things, so it feels like, even though I'm not using her name, it feels like shit talking. But that's been the end result of it, regardless of what happened. That's how it affected me. So
Yeah.
you know, that's at least valid.
Yeah.
But so, like, obviously, being at home with your parents who are trying to sleep and you're like trying to sneakily masturbate, that's a pretty adolescent kind of experience. And so, like, it makes sense to me that there's a connection between feeling unfulfilled in your career and feeling like you're still a kid, right? Because it's like we associate having like work that you're proud of with adulthood. You know, we don't really have a rite of passage in our society the way that some other cultures do.
Mm.
And so, like, you can kind of be left feeling like you're lingering in this child place indefinitely. And you may have some concept of like, oh, now I'm a grown up or whatever. Like you've got some checklist in your mind, like, oh, when I have the solid job that I'm not trying to leave and I want to stay in forever, and I have the family, and I, have the house, or whatever it is for you in your brain that makes you an adult, and you haven't gotten there, you know, it leaves you feeling like lost in some way, you know. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel that way, though. I feel that way.
And this other dream that I can't quite remember, they were also asleep in their bedroom, and it had to do with me dealing with chaos in the living room and like trying to take care of it before they wake up, which it shares that with the masturbation dream.
Mm.
Where it's this feeling of like, I got to get this done before mom and dad wake up, like i.e. before, you know, the dawn of childhood.
Yeah.
Or the dawn of adulthood rises and the sun of childhood sets.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And because if I don't do this before then I'm officially a loser.
Right. That makes a lot of sense to me,
Yeah.
is that for you in a dream, your parents being asleep and you trying to get something done without waking them or before they wake up is like you feeling like there's some deadline, you know, you're not there yet, but you're getting close to it. And once you cross that line, oh, I never grew up. I never succeeded in whatever I was trying to succeed in or whatever. It's all a lost cause from this point. People feel that way about 30 a lot of the time, you know. 30's like, if I'm not the person I want to be by 30, I'm a failure or whatever. I used to have, this is not healthy, but like I was like kind of a dorky musician kid. And so like I always had it in my head of 27, right? Because you have like the 27 Forever Club. Thing. And so it's like, by the time 27 rolled around, I was like, okay, all these people that were my idols when I was a kid. Rose had huge careers that like changed the world and died by the age I'm at. And I have done fuck all.
No, I did the same thing, but my first one was 22 because the lead singer of the Germs, Darby Crash, I have their logo tattooed on my arm here. He died of a heroin overdose at 22. A lot of those punk guys died in their early 20s, kind of like the SoundCloud rappers now. But then when I passed 22, I was like, all right, well, that was just that one guy. And that is brutally young. Now that I'm here, I realize how young that is.
Right.
Yeah,
now that
sure.
you're 30, now that you're in your 30s, you're like, I cannot imagine.
22 is a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, okay, 27 then. And then I got to 27. I'm like, well, this is still pretty young.
Yeah.
I got time. Yeah.
If anything, it's insane that Jimi Hendrix was 27 years old. As a kid, I thought he was like
Oh my
45.
God.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I know.
I'm 27, and honestly, like that number hits differently too, like just by itself, because it's like 26, you're like, I'm in my mid 20s. 27, solidly like you're in your late 20s, you know? Or at least at the beginning of your late 20s. You're a late 20s, late 20 something, and that feels different, you know?
Yeah, weirdly, 32 hit me harder than 30 because I started telling people I was 30 at 28 to like
get ahead
in front of it. Yeah,
to like mentally prepare for it. And then when I hit 32, I'm like, oh, now I'm like in my 30s.
Yeah,
I should start telling people I'm older than I am, and then they'll tell me I look young forever.
That's true. That would work.
It would work.
I was I was just when I lived in Seattle, I was hanging out with my roommate, a good friend of mine, and we were just like watching a movie, and it just like hit me because he's also 32, and I was like, dude, do you realize we're closer to 40 than we are 20? And he just turned the TV off and was like, what the fuck? Why would you do that?
Would you ruin the day like that? But I think, people tend to like hide that shame and that anxiety, and so it feels heavy and dark and like it rules you, and lonely, and like you're the only one dealing with this. And I think, the more people, man, just like everybody's wrestling with that same thing. And when you put it out there and your buddies are like, oh yeah, no, I got that too. It feels so small and like kind of stupid, It's like, it's so many things are just healthier to get out into daylight and fresh air, and they kind of shrink down to their proper proportions.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still wrestling with the, just the cost of living in Los Angeles, but that's also probably not unique. It feels unique when you're like, I can't be the only one like worried about rent.
But you know what? That's a grown-up problem. That's an adult problem you got right there.
Thank you for listening to The Young and the Restless.
You can follow us on Instagram at The Young and the Restless Pod, and submit your dreams for interpretation to The Young and the Restless Pod at Gmail.
And as we always say,
$500 in this economy? Both know you should probably be trying to better yourself or spending time with your children, but instead, why don't you head on over to Apple Podcasts and drop a review about, I don't know, some dream you had or something? Maybe we'll read it on the pod.
Put down Duolingo, put down your fitness app, and tell us your dreams.